Me personally, I investigated 11 motorcycle fatalities my last year as a detective.
Right.
And out of those 11, 8 of them could have been completely avoided.
Right.
They were all guys.
Rider error.
Rider error. Dave Rooney, originally from Seattle, lived in Vegas the last 32 years, was a motor cop. Well, was a cop with Las Vegas Metro for almost 26 years. Out of that 26 years, 11 of it I was on motorcycle. I was also part of the fatal team for 5 years, a little bit 5.5 years. So, and we investigated fatalities and serious injury collisions and anything that did to do with the department. You know, if the department's involved in a collision or whatever,
right,
then we would investigate those as well.
But now you're retired and you're a rider coach for 2 very large organizations.
Right.
We got into the conversation of the state of riders out there, and my comment was the people that you see are not always very. I mean, there's a reason why they're there. They've got to get certified for the state, or they realize that maybe they need some help.
Yeah, better skills.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But from what you see, I don't know, I've always said it's scary. It frightens me of all the people that are on the road with a handlebar in their hand, and luckily they get out of the parking lot. And, you know, that's why I've just seen, and I've ridden with them and crashed. I pulled them out of the ditch, and it's just kind of shocking to me.
Well, it's pretty interesting. My last year with Metro, me personally, I investigated 11 motorcycle fatalities my last year as a detective.
Right.
And out of those 11, 8 of them could have been completely avoided.
Right.
They were all guys.
Rider error,
going too fast in urban settings or in busy, city streets, doing stuff they shouldn't have been doing. And all of them had speed.
Right.
Most of them were young guys on sport bikes.
Really? Yeah. Okay. Just riding over their head.
And I had one other that could have avoided a collision. He left like over 100 feet of rear wheel skid only, and then smashes into another car who was turning left out of a side street. But he was on a big arterial 50-mile-an-hour road. And during the investigation, I figured he was probably doing really close to 60, which is not that crazy on a 50-mile-an-hour road. It's 10 over, big deal. Mm-hmm. But in my investigation, if he had just tapped his front brake, there'd have been no collision. He'd have stopped way ahead of making contact with that car.
Did he have front brakes?
He did.
I know a bunch of chopper guys, they took them off because it doesn't look cool to have those cables.
He had a brand new, wasn't brand new, but maybe a year or two old Harley, big bagger.
Okay.
Brand new. He was an accomplished rider from everything we've talked or heard, but his skills were, he was never taught, I guess, to utilize his front brake, because in my investigation, he didn't touch the front brakes.
How can you determine that just with a skid?
Yeah, tire marks on the road, left on the road.
Huh.
So even if you're not skidding, you still leave tire marks.
Right.
So, and especially in that area, because it was a very smooth asphalt surface.
Right.
It wasn't that old.
Right. So
it left really good evidence.
Huh.
But, and then we had another guy that is unfortunate. It's just his time. Lady ran a green light, making a left turn.
Wow.
But it was permissive green.
Right.
And he was in the middle of the pack. So it wasn't like he was in the front or he wasn't trailing.
She took him out of the middle of the pack.
She took him out of the middle of the pack.
Ooh, wow.
Because she was late to work.
Yeah.
And that one was one of the only ones. There was like 2 that were kind of just unfortunate. Right. It was just those crash factors that occur and line up in the perfect storm.
But 8 out of 11 were avoidable because of rider error.
9 out of 11 were avoidable. Completely avoidable.
That's even higher than the national statistics, I think. So
yeah,
and that may be, the statistics could be wrong, but that was my
experience for my last year.
Anecdotal, yeah. Sure.
That was my last year.
Right. But it's something that made an impression on you.
Well, yeah, you know what, and just being with Metro and seeing all the collisions, and then you find out how many riders are out there that don't even have an endorsement.
Right.
And then on top of that, the ones that do, how many have actually taken a rider course?
Right.
Me, myself, when I came to Metro and I did all my patrol, 10 years of patrol and whatnot, and I decided I wanted to go into traffic, I'd been riding a motorcycle for over 16 years, you know, and I had never taken an official course. I had a really good instructor in the very beginning. It was one of my best friends' dad, who taught us all in the beginning, and he laid down some really good basic skills for us and safety things. But when I went to my first motor school, I was humbled. I was so humbled because I just kind of went home and told my wife, I said, Shannon, you know, honey, those last 16 years, I think I've been lucky. You know, count my stars that I'm still here, because I didn't really know how to operate that motorcycle. I didn't know how to really push it around.
Yeah, that's interesting.
I was making it go where I needed it to go, but I didn't understand how and why I was doing it and the principles behind the motorcycle.
So 16 years, and you rode pretty consistently,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, the shocker is getting out there in the parking lot and having somebody show you that, oh wow,
There's a better way.
Yeah.
There is a better way. There is a right way. You know, all the courses that are out there, it's not the only way. But I mean, getting some kind of training, you know, anything is better than nothing. What's the shocker with most of the students that we have right now, where I'm coaching, they don't understand that it becomes more of a safety course than it does a riding course. And it's more about, it's easy to teach people how to push the motorcycle around and ride it, but it's the principles and the strategies to stay safe while you're doing it, so you can be doing it for a long time. And that's the eye-opener. Even the experienced riders that have to go to the class because for whatever reason they got stopped by the police or their insurance company tells them, hey, we're going to drop you unless you go and get your endorsement. You know, a lot of those riders, even after the class, they're like, wow, I learned so much. You know, thank you. I didn't know what I was doing wrong and things I should have been paying more attention to.
You thought you had a decent understanding of riding because you've been doing it so long, and then you find out that you just had a few clues.
Yeah, I had some clues, and I had enough.
Right.
I had enough. And some of them, you know, they say the same thing. Also, yeah, I've been down a couple times, or with buddies that have been down and stuff like that. And you kind of, now that they've been through the course, you can ask them, okay, looking back, do you see what caused that? And a lot of times they're like, yeah, I see now what I did.
Right.
And I'm the one who actually caused the bike to go down. I said, yeah, most of the time. I mean, there's times that environmentally, or the road might be, you know, poopy or something, you know, that happens. Or somebody picks you out of the middle of the pack, that happens. But there's a huge percentage of the time a collision can be avoided if the rider makes the right choices prior to that.
Right.
Take all those crash factors out and you survive.
Yeah.
You know, hey, better than that, you don't damage your bike.
No scratches.
No scratches. That's the worst.
Yeah.
You know, if you don't have an adventure bike. Now, adventure bike, as you know, we need to put some scratches on it. As a matter of fact,
to be legit.
Matter of fact, when we were on Mauna Kea and you said, all right, you scratched the right side, now you need to scratch the left side. And that's when I fell over on the left side. And as I'm going over, I'm going, Don. Why? Why did you curse me?
What an adventure that was. That was a great trip.
That was so fun. That was such another eye-opener and such an experience for me, since I'd never had ridden an adventure bike really before.
Right.
And to have you and Chris, you know, teach me, basically, give me some basic skills.
We gave you nothing.
You did. No, you guys did. You gave me a lot. You guys gave me a lot of encouragement and a lot of tutelage, and you know how to pick the right line, and basically
You did shockingly well. I mean, obviously it's your years of experience, but still, dirt is a completely different animal because it's the extreme, you know. Anyway, I thought you did
And lava,
lava. Yeah, let's not
lava
talk about
rocks
lava.
and ledges and.
Talk about the that myth that we talked about earlier of laying her down, because I just made a video about that recently.
Dragging my knee, sparks flying off
Right.
the kickstand,
Like usual.
and then a naked girl run out in front of me. So I had to lay her down right there on the road.
So you laid her down?
I laid her down.
Did you lay her down?
He laid her down.
He laid her down. Did you lay her down?
Laid her down.
And then where did she go?
He had to lay her down today. He had nowhere else to go. The front slid out, she slid away. He had to lay her down today.
Laying her down?
Yeah, just give me the whole picture of laying her down.
Well, most people who've been around motorcyclists are going to hear the stories of I had to lay her down. I'm like, okay, you had to lay her down. What do you mean you had to lay her down? Well, I had to lay her down to avoid a collision. I'm like, okay, well, hold on a second. Let me get this right. You had to cause a collision to avoid a collision. But did you really avoid the collision? It's like, no, I still slid into it. It's like, okay, so let me get this right. Let me get this right. Who taught you how to lay it down? I'm like, as far as I know, the only schools out there to teach anybody how to lay down anything like that at speed is stunt drivers.
All right.
You know, in California.
Looks cool in a movie.
Looks great in a movie. Those are the only ones I know that teach you how to lay a bike down. Typically when somebody lays a bike down, it's just over application of braking.
All right.
And then that front tire locks up on them and they go down.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm like, who teaches you this? And I'm like, well, let's put it to you this way. Would you rather stay up, scrub speed off, and hit something solid like a car, truck, or wall at 10 or 15 miles an hour, which is survivable, or lay it down at 45, 50 miles an hour and slide under it at 45 or 50 miles an hour? Because you're really not slowing down that much. And once that bike goes down on its side, what kind of control do you have? Zero.
You mean scrubbing speed with rubber or scrubbing speed with your ass? Which one's preferable?
Right. Scrubbing speed with rubber. Keeping both tires upright, utilizing good progressive braking. You know, yeah, you may not avoid a collision, but 10, 15 miles an hour, a whole lot more survivable than sliding under something at 50. And metal and plastic on bikes against asphalt, it's like a toboggan. And now if your crankcase is opened up and you got oil that's lubricating everything too, you ain't slowing down. That thing is just going. It's just flat out moving. So you're not scrubbing much speed off if you want to lay it down. Now people are like, oh, but things dig into the asphalt. And yes, there are occasions that happens. But when you get into doing traffic accident reconstruction and you look at that stuff and you go and test those principles by throwing bikes off the back of trucks or off of skid trailers and stuff and watching how they react when they tumble and when they slide, and you're like, that bike don't slow down very fast when it's tumbling or when it's sliding.
Just watch MotoGP. It's right there. They slide all the way off the track.
There is so much YouTube out there, video or whatever, that you can get online and watch these bikes just slide.
Right.
And it's like, people don't realize that, I may not be able to avoid this collision. I put myself in a bad position because of my choices that I made at the time. But I got to keep that bike upright and just do what I can. Because, as a matter of fact, I would rather hit something, like the side of a car and catapult over it than slide under it.
Yeah.
Where you get wedged and ran over or whatever.
On top of that, you're sliding with your short pants and your flip flops and your t-shirt and who wants to do that? Who has ever reacted?
That's not good.
With the I guess I need to lay her down. That's the myth, right?
That's the myth. That's
is
the
that
myth.
somebody had enough thought to let me
Lay her
my
down.
bike down. Well, it's an ego thing. That's what it's driven by. It's like I
It is.
crashed. I gave it too much brake. I went down.
No, I did that on purpose.
Yeah.
I laid her down. I had to
was
lay
not
her
a mistake.
down.
It was not the fact that I can't ride very
It was
well.
purposeful.
Yeah, I just grabbed a handful.
You just grabbed a handful. And then when we go and look at the evidence on the road and go, nope, front brake locked up, front tire locked up, slid out, you went down. The bike laid itself down because you over applied your front brake.
That's what happens.
That's what happens. And it is, you hit it on the button. It's an ego thing. We don't want to be wrong. That sucks to be wrong. Especially if you get hurt or you damage your bike, that sucks worse.
Well, you talk about the ego thing out on the course, because that's the most interesting thing to me, because I've seen people that just absolutely did not want to take part in any kind of skill assessment, because they knew they weren't going to be able to do it.
You know what? It's kind of the ego thing kind of dissipates really quick, which is kind of cool to see. You might have people come in with maybe a little bit of an ego or a little bit of chip on the shoulder. Hey, I've been riding a long time. I've been pushing a motorcycle for 25 years, dirty.
Yeah.
It's like, dirty? It's like, well, I haven't had an endorsement. It's like, okay, so now you have to get an endorsement because you got stopped by the police, or like this guy that I had, that the insurance company makes him do it because they're like, dude, you've been riding without a motorcycle endorsement and we've been covering you. You need to get a motorcycle endorsement.
Right.
So, but you see those egos fade really quick and they become humble.
Yeah. Just like you did.
Oh, big time. I had actually a Moto GP racer, licensed to race. And he came to take the class because he didn't have a street endorsement to ride motorcycle. And he wanted to be able to ride his motorcycles and stuff.
Right.
This guy's been racing. He's used to 160 miles an hour, 180 miles an hour, flat out on the ground.
Right.
When he came to our course, he did not have an ego, but I could tell he had that confidence that, oh, this is easy. I'm going to get through this. It's just a formality. I just got to get through it.
Right.
So go ahead. What are you going to teach me? After 15 minutes in the class of pushing those bikes around at slow speed, he says, this is pretty humbling.
Yeah.
Because he couldn't do it.
That's funny.
Because he's not used to turning the handlebars.
It's completely different.
He's just leaning the bike.
Yeah.
Lean it over. His handlebars turn this much.
Yeah.
Yeah. But you get out there on the street and you want to turn around in the driveway to get gas.
Yeah.
And you're like, I can't do this. Well, I'm gonna have to duck walk it all the way around to get to the gas pump, which looks sexy.
Yeah.
And it's, you know what? If that's what you got to do, you got to do that.
Yeah.
It's better than the bike falling over. But 15 minutes into the class, 20 minutes into the class, he was humbled and he's like, wow, I didn't realize there was so much that I could do with this bike, slow speed. Yeah, I can handle it. And you know what? I'd be the same way going out there and getting into your environment. 160? Not this guy.
Right.
Never done it.
Right.
And there would be a humbling experience. I've been over hundreds, 120, but speeds you do, that's talent, that's skill. That's just a different arena.
Right.
I deal with the real world. You're dealing with speed world.
Right.
So, but it was pretty cool. He passed. Obviously he was going to pass. He's got skill.
Right.
He just needed to understand that
small realm of the low speed
stuff, and I can really turn these handlebars.
But that's kind of what I've always said. That's the basics. If you can't do the low speed stuff, what are you going to do at 45 in a corner? All of a sudden, it's like you don't have those low speed anything.
Yeah.
It's like, you can't translate it, but everything you do in a parking lot is going to eventually translate to highway speeds.
To helping you.
Yeah.